Hello everyone, and here we have a news story. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics and the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail, broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published once every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now, let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. I met my future wife 10 years ago. I was surrounded by a lot of girls, but I absolutely couldn't stand female attention. I've had short relationships with girls and quick breakups. I haven't had many intimate relationships, despite numerous short novels. When I saw my wife, I went crazy for some reason. I fell in love with her at first sight. She also fell incredibly in love with me. My father, when he looked at how my wife treated me, said that I was incredibly lucky. That my girlfriend loves me like in romance novels written in books. In general, our relationship was idyllic. We dissolved into each other. It was a love that is very rare to meet in our time. We spent all our free time together. There have been many better moments in my relationship. We started our relationship from scratch. We didn't have any money. At first, we lived with our parents, but all the difficulties were not important to us. After 2 years, we got married. I managed to build my business. I started making good money. We had a very beautiful wedding. That's how our married life began. There were ups and downs, quarrels and reconciliations, but our love and passion never faded. As time went on, I started having problems with my business. I started investing all my money in business development. I didn't keep a dime, so there was hope for a way out of the crisis situation. At this moment, people close to me betray me and take everything I have. I was left with nothing. This is a separate story of betrayal. But the bottom line is that my wife supported me at that moment. We were left without money again. Just like at the very beginning of our relationship, I turned out to be a loser and was out of work for exactly a year. I have never heard words of condemnation from my wife. My wife got a job. I'm fully occupied with our house and son. At that moment, I replaced my son's mother. My son is 6 years old. My wife still doesn't communicate with him the way I do. A little later, I took out a loan and opened a small food production. It was just ridiculous compared to what I had. And again, I started having problems with my business. This time my wife supported me again and said that we could go to the village and do farming in general. In general, the son, the house, the small business, everything was on me. In principle, we did not deny ourselves anything. As it turned out, my wife had a lot of things. Every year we went to Florida. I even bought a new car. But the difficulties in everyday life began to prevail over our relationship. It's hard to have sex with your wife when there are problems at work. I slowly began to move away from my wife, but I've never cheated on my wife. I haven't even seen my friends. I was coming home after work and spending time with my family. Here we had another quarrel. My wife said she was going to her mother. I thought she wasn't serious. We will live separately and miss each other. We will consider the mistakes we have made. And everything will get better. My wife is packing up and leaving. I've been living all alone for a week now. One day my wife comes and insists on a serious conversation. Then I didn't listen to my wife. I said it wouldn't do. You should have asked me if I was ready to talk. I took the house keys from her and said goodbye. I started taking my son with me to spend time with him. My son has always been the meaning of my life. My wife told me that I was looking at my son in a way I had never looked at her. My son was with me almost all the time. So another week goes by, I'm already starting to worry. My wife very rarely writes to me on social media to maintain our relationship. Another month passes. I'm starting to realize that too much time has passed. We can reach the point of no return. I get dressed, get in the car, and drive to her for a conversation. My wife replies to me that she is no longer sure she wants to talk to me. And anyway, she doesn't want to renew our relationship. I was shocked by what I heard. I begged her not to make mistakes. We have lived together so much, and we have a child together. I insisted on my own and took her to my house. We had sex on arrival. At that moment, I felt that something was wrong. My wife somehow became a stranger. Everything became much wider between her legs. I didn't even manage to finish after such a break. I started Googling. If a girl does not have sex, maybe she has a weakening of the genital muscles. But the residue on my soul and suspicions remained in my head. After our intimacy, she said she would think about returning. She asked me not to push her. 2 weeks had passed. It was like living in hell. I begged her like a fool. I couldn't be torn between work, my son, and my wife. Every evening I sat and waited for my wife from work. But she found excuses. She said that her mother got sick, then blockages at work, and so on. One night, with trembling hands, I dial her number. I want to find out if she will come to me, or at least to her son. She brazenly informs me that she is at the bar with her friends and will stay late. In the end, she told me to take my son to her mother. I was shocked. That evening, I got very drunk and decided to call her friends with whom she was having fun at the bar. There was a conflict. The next day, I met with one of them. He informed me that my wife, after we broke up, immediately came to them to complain about life. She told them what a difficult relationship she had in her family. They calmed my wife down and started inviting her to have fun with them. There was a man in this company. He was 50 years old. He started taking care of my wife and offered her a side job. My wife was worried that she didn't have enough money to live independently. He took her with him on a business trip to another city. At that moment, everything happened. He had sex with my wife in a hotel room after work. Then they had an affair for a month and a half. He took my wife with him on business trips 4 more times. They had many meetings in cafes and bars. She always spent the night at her mother's house. When he saw that I started calling my wife, and it smacks of conflict, he left my wife right away. He said there would be no more business trips and that he no longer needed my wife. 2 days after that, my wife started begging me for forgiveness. She came at night and cried at the front door. My wife said they only had sex once. She was just drinking alcohol and was stressed after breaking up with me. After that, there was the usual communication, mostly in the company of these friends. I understand that all this is a lie. If he hadn't left my wife, I would have sat and waited for her. I probably didn't even find out that she had another man. I was shocked by how banal everything was, despite the fact that my wife humiliated herself and asked me to forgive her. I just threw her out. I said I would never forgive her for cheating. I filed for divorce. The lawyer drew up a statement saying that the mother leads an immoral lifestyle. By the way, I took revenge on my wife's lover. I met him in a dark alley and explained in an accessible way that you can't have sex with other people's wives. I beat him up. In the end, I warned him that if he went to the police, I would tell his wife everything. As it turned out, besides his wife, he has 2 more children. In the end, the trial took place. My son was left to me. I was very lucky that the judge was humane. I live with my son. My wife sometimes comes and spends time with him. When he grows up, I'll tell him everything. I hope he will understand me and will not hold a grudge for leaving him without a mother. That's the story, friends. If you liked it, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. Before I say a word, according to tradition, I want to wish this man to hold on and not give up in any case. Every man suffers separation painfully. It's much easier for girls in this regard. I read this story, there were a lot of good moments in it. But yes, it happens that a girl can leave even after 20 years of marriage. The girl just got bored and she wanted new sensations. The man was very worried and tried to fix the situation. This was his main mistake because the girl felt in demand. So she ignored him to the last. The girl just stopped having enough emotional resources. She received this resource from her friends. Later, and from this elderly man. The man took advantage of this and the girl spread her legs. Girls in our world are emotional beings. These emotions can be well managed if you know how to do it correctly. The man simply failed his balance of importance. In their relationship, the balance was 50-50, but when the man began to take more initiative, the importance of the girl began to grow. This led to a bad end. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.